Good afternoon. Today we're going to continue our discussion of ancient flight, and we're going to look specifically at one designer of aviation ideas. I'm going to share my screen with you, and let's begin our lesson. First objective, identify key aviation devices designed during ancient times. Now, a lot of different designs were tried, but the problem was nothing was drawn out, written down, or seen to fruition. The second thing that you're going to need to do is describe how these early designs may have inspired flight today. So I'm going to pose a question. Who was the first person in the history of aviation who was a real scientist? Any ideas? Leonardo da Vinci. They call him the Renaissance man because not only did he like aviation and science, but he was a medical person, he was an inventor, and he was an artist. The first design we're going to look at is his parachute. Now, the parachute was based on the principle described by Leonardo that if you were to throw it off some height, it would land without injury. And if you look at his design with the wood framework around it and compare it to design of today's inventors who tried to emulate or do what Leonardo had designed, you can see that his design would have worked without the wood. The second idea was the aerial screw. And how this worked is you had blades that would spin around a central mast, but the spinning of those blades was created by 4 men running around that mast. That's a lot of weight to get off the ground. And it is the forerunner of today's helicopter, an aircraft that gets its lift from spinning blades. Da Vinci also did some research and design of gliders. Now, a glider is a plane today without an engine. If you look at his design, there's a lot of heavy wood in this. This basically turned into something very different from our gliders of today. So a glider is a light aircraft without an engine. And today it's usually towed aloft by another plane and then released, or it can be catapulted. The glider that emulates what Leonardo did is much like today's hang gliders. Now, a glider only has directional control, meaning it can go left or right. The last design we're going to briefly talk about is his idea of an ornithopter. Now, Leonardo was intrigued by how birds could fly, and he actually did some autopsies on birds and saw how their wings were constructed. And he thought that if we could get a man to use flapping wings, we could get him off the ground. Tomorrow's lesson, I'll describe why it is that we cannot get off the ground with flapping wings. If there are no questions, make sure that you have your note takers filled out. I'm going to stop the share right now. And if anybody has any questions about today's small lesson, let me know. And if not, I'm going to stop the recording.